Hello, everyone. It is wonderful to see so many of you here today. We're going to go ahead and get started and want to first thank you for being so flexible, first with the change in venue and now with waiting for lunch. So I apologize. It is on its way, just a few minutes away. So what we're going to do is once we get started, we'll kind of go table by table and go up and select your lunch and come back just so that we can keep the presentation going. We'll kind of come in and grab you when the lunch is here. Wanted to thank you for coming to the Lunch and Learn sponsored by Bank of America. We do this every month, and there should be some information about the remainder of the year's slot of sessions, and we will also begin soon planning for next year. So if you're interested in presenting or have a topic that you're interested in, we'd love to talk to you more about that, or you can let us know via the form. So my name is Becky Knight. I have served on the board for several years. I have several board members here for the Carolinas LGBT Chamber of Commerce. Raise your hand. Jason's over there. Yes, I think there's even some back. Woo! So if you have any questions, come up and grab any of us. We'd love to talk to you more about the chamber and the opportunities for members and professionals, business owners, and all of that. Let's see. So we're going to talk today about networking, which is kind of a scary topic, but it didn't scare too many of you away. So you're here. It's kind of one of those. Some people really love it. A lot of people don't. But it's a necessary thing, right? As adults, it's kind of part of adulting and being a professional, being a small business owner. So we're going to talk about it today. We have two speakers. First up is Cameron Pruitt. And if you've been in Charlotte at any events, you probably have known Cameron or stood next to him or talked to him or, he's everywhere, it seems. But one thing I really appreciate about Cameron is he's not just present everywhere, he's present. And I think that's very key to his success and his role. And to that note, on the information that went out in our programming since we did that, he has moved into a new role, an expanded role, head of director of intersectional initiatives at the Freedom Center for Social Justice. So he'll come and tell us more about what he does and the power of networking. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Like Becky said, my name is Cameron Pruitt. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the Director of Intersectional Initiatives at the Freedom Center for Social Justice, and that's a lot of words. And so at the Freedom Center, our sweet spot really is we do work at the intersection of queer liberation, racial justice, and faith communities. So we're working on changing those hearts and minds and growing acceptance and affirmation in an intersectional way. And I know that word is a buzzword and gets used a lot, but the Freedom Center was using it 20 years ago before it got popular. And so we're truly committed. We are a womanist-led organization by Bishop Tanya Rawls, and we're deeply committed to social justice in all its aspects, for disability rights, for migrant rights, for racial rights, for queer rights, for voting rights. And so we sit at that intersection, and our catchphrase is educate, advocate, celebrate. So I am excited to be here today, and joining me is Zach Anderson of Zaddy Solutions, who you may know if you've ever needed to find a job recently.
Hey, if you don't know me, I'm Zach Anderson. I started my own recruiting business about 2.5 years ago, partly with the encouragement of the chamber, because there was not that many LGBTE certified businesses out there that actually do recruiting. So I think we're like one of 3 or 4 in the entire United States. So it's been quite an honor being able to grow this here locally and organically in Charlotte, North Carolina, because it is definitely still needed, and it doesn't take that much to get outside of Charlotte and know that we still need representation here. So we started out in the technology space, but more recently have expanded more into corporate roles all over the board. And even if you are not already in technology, we do work with nonprofits that actually train people to get into technology. So if you're curious about that, we can talk about that as well.
Awesome. All right, so networking. How do you meet new people? How do you grow your network? How do you talk to strangers and not feel completely transactional, like I want money from you or I want a job from you? So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. I appreciate that Zach is here because a lot of my work is in nonprofit spaces or advocacy spaces. I'm going to go ahead and tell you at the end of this, I will be asking you to take a political action and make a phone call, all right? So, because if you've met me, that's also what you know me for. If you want to, you can pull out your phone and go to menti.com, menti.com. Or if you're able to scan this QR code from afar, I'm going to step out of the way and do that as well. But if you go to menti.com and you could enter in the code, it's here on the screen. You're welcome to join us as well online. And so the code is 6219-0237. If you can't read that from afar, it's 6219-0237. And so I would just like to know a little bit more about what you want to know about today. So what are you looking to get out of your networking experience? Why do you network? And so there should be a prompt on your phone. You can give up to 3 answers. You can give more than that if you like. But just go ahead and answer the question. And if you need any assistance pulling this up, you can wave Zach or I down, and we'd be happy to help. All right, success, future business, collaborate on projects, relationships, growth, inspire, purpose, connect, knowledge, like-minded people, growth, opportunity, face fears, advice, contacts, new job, right? So we've got a lot of different reasons why we are networking, right? And those are different, right? The reason I may come to a networking event may be different from why you're coming. But we can see a lot of common themes here, right? That we want to find new contacts, whether that be for new business, for personal growth, to learn new skills that we may not have, fund future projects, expand our outlook, right? There are personal reasons for doing this. There are professional reasons for doing this. And so the beauty of networking is that you can do either. You can do both in the same setting, and that every person you meet has something to teach you. Every one of us has different experiences, different places we've been, different things that we have to teach that no one else in this room can teach. And so that's the beauty of this process, is that no matter what your reason for coming into a networking space, know that you have something unique to share that no one else in that room has. I don't know if you want to add on to that.
Yes. The other thing I would add to that is going in and networking for a purpose. If you're just going in, it's like, oh, I'm just going to show up. It's kind of like just writing your name on a test and expecting to get 100. Don't do that. Going in with a goal and coming out with a goal, or being able to set a goal before you go in and making sure you can check those boxes as you leave if you're more of a goal-oriented person. Because if you're just going in expecting to meet everybody without actually having a goal, you're not going to feel successful. So making sure that you're knowing what you're going in with or what you're wanting to achieve, and then making sure you achieve that so that you're still going forward and having that success.
Absolutely, right? And so we'll talk a little bit more about process and how you can better prepare. I have a quote here that I just wanted to share that kind of helped guide my thinking today. Your network is your destiny, a reality backed up by many studies in the newly emergent fields of social networking and social contagion theory. We are the people we interact with, right? Your networking in many ways is also building your community, right? You may be building friendships, you may be meeting new people, and so that your network is your reality. It is your present, it is your future, and it is your past, right? None of us have gotten anywhere we are alone. We have all put in hard work to get where we are, but none of us have done that alone. We have had teachers, we have had mentors, we have had siblings, we have had parents, we have had friends who have helped us get to where we are. And so building the network you want is how you can get to the next step in your career or in your life as well.
I have a quote that's a little bit more simple. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around. If you want to be successful, be around successful people. I think Oprah said that, or somebody else, I don't know.
It sounds right, right? But yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about, I was actually a little surprised when I was asked to do this topic, because it's hard to be like, go to everything and don't sleep, which is what I feel like my networking skill is. But I want to talk a little bit about what I do to prepare before I go to a networking event and what my follow-up looks like. So we're going to talk about networking flow a little bit today. And so before you even get to the event, right, when you are deciding what event you're going to, even if it's not necessarily explicitly a networking event, what does your prep and registration look like, right? What are you doing before you go to an event? So I'm curious to know, what do you do before the networking opportunity? What are you doing? So you can go on your phone again and answer, and you can say nothing if you don't do anything, but I click to register. Like today you showed up, did you just register? Or what else might you have done before you came today? Research the organization and their network? Nothing? Thank you for the honesty. Prepare my elevator speech? Research? Yeah. Grab your business cards. That's good. Confirm calendar space, register, bring business cards, review the purpose of the event, and register if it aligns with my goals. Push myself out the door? Yes. I had a really good audiobook going on last night. I forgot to put a sleep timer on, so it was still playing this morning. I almost didn't want to get out of bed. Oh, get it out of the way. I look at who's in the group. How can I bring them value? Good. And we'll give just about 10 or 15 more seconds if you want to type up anything else. Look at the attendees. Put on colorful clothing. I like that. Get noticed. Stand out. Good, so these are all things that we could do before a networking event. And so I just wanted to get a pulse of the room to see what you do before networking. What I also say is that absolutely, listen, we live in an interconnected, overly digital age. I know everyone who clicked going to this event on LinkedIn and on Facebook, right? I can go through and see who those attendees are. And you're right that I absolutely looked up who they were and I went to their profiles, right, to see who's going to be at this event, right? Certainly a lot of times you can see the presenter, right? You can find their bio, who they are, but also who else is going to that event. You can decide in advance who it is you want to meet at that event, who it is you want to talk to, and what you're going to say to them, right? You can prepare all that in advance. Have your elevator speech ready for a specific person that you're looking to connect with, right? So cyber stalk away, right? If I put that I'm going on the Facebook event, that's a public going, right? That is public information out there, and that's what I do. So if I'm going to an event, a lot of times I know 2 or 3 people that I know I'm going to talk to. For example, I'm always going to talk to Bethany Corrigan if they're at an event, right in the back there, because that's just fun and feel good for me. And also, we probably have some professional things to catch up on. If I'm at an LGBT chamber event, I'm going to talk to Brian Van Husty. If he's there, I'm going to talk to Zach Anderson. I'm going to talk to Chad Turner, right? So knowing in advance who you are going to talk to, what you're going to talk to them about, and being prepared so that you aren't having to think so much on the fly. And that way you've already planned in advance. This is a connection I need to make. If you don't know anyone at the event, go into that event, like Zach said, with a purpose, right? Am I looking to network to grow my skill set, to grow my business, to grow a job? What is your purpose for going? And that will help guide as you're trying to meet new people.
Just quick raise of hands. Who in here would consider themselves an introvert? Anybody else? You don't have to be shy. I'm an introvert as well. I know I don't seem like it, but I am an introvert. By definition, I am. Talking to introverts, the preparation that that Cameron was talking about as far as knowing who is going to be there, so you can save all of your energy and put your energy towards your goals. Also, talking to people that make you feel good as well, like kind of clearing your voice. I was kind of hoarse when I first got up here. I had to clear my voice. Ate breakfast late. Sorry about that. But making sure you're ready, you're presentable, you are in the flow of things, and getting yourself ready before you actually get ready to talk to the person that you want to accomplish that goal with. I know extroverts we'll talk to anybody. This one's an extrovert. We'll go to all the things and never ever sleep. I'm not that person. I actually slept in this morning before coming to this. Make sure that you are preparing yourself. Practice makes perfect, and making sure that you're doing all the things that make you more comfortable and less anxious before you actually arrive to this. There are ways to actually prepare yourself to be your best person, even if you are an introvert and you have to go home and take a 12-hour nap after talking to one person.
And secondly, the other thing that was up here too, I just want to say, is know your calendar in advance, right? Be prepared to invite someone to coffee, lunch, dinner, a drink, and know when that is, right? So I can tell you like when I'm open for my next thing, so we don't have to pull out calendars and be comparing and spend 3 to 5 minutes. Because I live or die by my Google Calendar, so if you send me an invite, there was a meme that's Google Calendar invites are my love language. They are, right? But you don't have to be that way, but know when you're free, right? Know when you're able to get lunch, coffee, drink, dinner, so that, especially if you are looking for a deeper connection with someone, you may not get it, right? You had 15 to 20 minutes if you arrived early to talk to someone, and now you're sitting at tables listening to a presentation. It's a lot harder to have that one-on-one interaction right now. So knowing when you're free before you go to an event will let you be ready to make a quick plan so that you can have the deeper connection, because you're not going to make that deep connection necessarily at the event. You're going to make that introduction. And so to get to that deep connection, you need to have your calendar ready.
And also leaving time in your calendar to actually network. So like follow up, say Tuesday morning between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m., you're going to have coffee. It doesn't have to be in person. You can invite people to a virtual coffee, do whatever, but just making sure you have a plan and a follow-up to be able to do that. Because if you just leave your calendar open, I can meet you anytime, you're going to burn out. Just protect yourself.
Absolutely, yes. Always keep that balance. All right, so again, who do you want to meet? What do you want them to know? And what will you say, right? Which is kind of what we've already talked about. So thinking ahead of who do you want to meet and what do you want to be known for, right? As Becky may have shared with you earlier, sometimes I do have an identity crisis when I walk into an event because I wear different hats and do different things. So what do you want to be known for that day, right? Another way to say this maybe, what is your elevator pitch today? Who are you, right? And so being prepared to talk about who you are, what you do, or what you're interested in, right? You can tailor that to what your goal is. It doesn't have to be where you are right now, but where you want to go. And so thinking about how you're going to talk about who you are and why you're here is important in advance of the event. And I know we talked a little bit about that earlier. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about tailoring your elevator pitch.
Sure. I wear not as many hats as you do, but since we have a rugby jersey in the audience, that's what I was known for probably 10 or 11 years, and being able to segue away from being known as like Rugby Zach or anything like that. Now it's like Zaddy Solutions, or then there's also the other things I'm involved in, and you really have to make sure that you're setting the tone for your personal brand and what you're known for. I've worked with an actual like professional speaking coach, and to know what your story is and what your authentic story is, because people can feel that immediately. I call it my goosebump check. If somebody is being authentic with me and I'm having that connection, like I'll get goosebumps on my arm. So knowing that and being authentic, and just you'll find your tribe, you'll find your people, and the people that find you most intriguing will immediately connect and want to follow up with you. So being your most genuine and telling your true story.
Awesome. All right, so let's talk a little. So we've talked a little bit about prep. Now let's talk about during the event. So a couple of event tips I have, right? So this is kind of from my own personal tips. I read like 2 or 3 books too to just try and cross-reference, because again, I was surprised I was asked to do this. But here's what I say. Number 1, repetition, right? Especially if you are an introvert or it's a very busy event, go to repeated events with the same organization, right? The first time you come to an LGBT chamber event, you may meet one person, or you may meet no one because you showed up late and the presentation started, lunch was running late and you had to leave early, right? But if you go to the same grouping multiple times, you will just organically start to make more connections, right? It is an investment of time, but if there are groups of people that you see have the skill sets, have the personalities, people that you want to get to know better, then go to that same grouping multiple times, right? We're at a chamber event, so it's gonna be my example, right? Go to the chamber event every month when you can. And you'll just start to organically make those connections over time. The first time I met many people in this room, we didn't talk necessarily, or we talked very briefly, and I asked you to sign a petition before I said my name, right? And that was all we knew about each other. And so just knowing that repetition will help you build those connections organically. It also takes some of the pressure off where you feel like, I need to find my job tonight, and if I don't find it tonight or I don't make that connection, then it's game over in this hour, 30 minutes time we have together. That repetition will help you make those organic, authentic connections, and also you'll find new connections as you're going through the room too, things you may not have expected. We've already talked about this, but know your calendar, right? Make space before, make that a goal for yourself. Today, I'm going to find someone to get coffee with at noon on Friday. Make that goal, right? Make it tangible, make it something you can achieve, right? You don't need to I'm gonna find lunch for every day next week, right? You don't need to have 5 lunches by the time you're done, but have a specific goal. You can start small. But I always wanna leave a networking event with at least 1 lunch for the following week, that I'm gonna get lunch with someone in the room, and my challenge sometimes is that I will get lunch with someone new because I'll just default to a friend at this point. But find ways to make a goal for yourself that you know your calendar and here's what you can achieve in the next week. And then my last tip is to be a connector. The easiest thing to do is to meet someone and then introduce them to someone else in the room. And you have immediately built a network by yourself, and you didn't have to do much of any talking on your own, right? Well, this is Zach, and Zach works for Zaddy, you know. Also, I'm terrible with names. And so if I'm introducing you to someone after we just met, I'm also practicing your name and what you do, right? So it is also a good tip to try and be a connector so that if you meet someone in the room, you can also introduce them to someone else. Someone who does this amazing is always Mel in the back. Mel is always making sure everyone in the circle knows each other, right? Now she's chair of the chamber board, right? But you want to make sure that you are a connector of people, right? It also is, again, an easy conversational trick, right? Because it doesn't require you to say anything necessarily that you haven't pre-scripted in your mind, but it does help you remember who people are and helps you start and open the door with someone else because you're just introducing them.
Just a little bit more on the being able to connect other people with other people. You'll quickly start establishing your brand and hearing things and hearing opportunities quickly because you're not being self-centered and it's not all about you. You're actually wanting to help out the people around you, and that will actually allow people to be confide in you, talk about opportunities, always want to text you or call you or with information, and it's setting that cycle in motion very quickly that you're someone to be trusted and you're in the know.
Absolutely. Any questions so far before we move on about preparation or networking at events? Yeah, Becky. Absolutely. So how would this change or apply to a virtual event was Becky's question. The good thing about a virtual event is that you immediately have everyone's name, right? If you're on a Zoom, you got all the names. My boss always takes a screenshot. If we're on a Zoom, she puts it on gallery mode, she takes a screenshot, she sends it to all the staff of where we work, right? So you have a name and a face for whoever's there. So that's one of the things that can change, is that you can immediately start getting the names of folks who are there. Also, if you're a virtual event, we're trying to figure out how to do virtual events well still and hybrid events well. But a lot of virtual events will still do a lot of the breakout rooms to put you in smaller groups of people to help you make those interactions and connections. The other thing I'll say for virtual events is to be active in the chat if at all possible, right? Because a lot of times these virtual events are very easy to go off camera, listen, and you may be learning, but you're not really networking, right, at that point. And so if you're active in the chat, depending on what the event is and if that's appropriate, that's also ways you can connect with people. See what people are saying in the chat box, saying, oh, that was really cool. Zoom now has where you can directly reply to a thread, kind of like Facebook comment threads, right, where you're replying to specific things, and now you can thumbs up and heart comments. So be active in there as well. Don't necessarily negate that this now is a presentation and not a networking opportunity. So that'd be a couple of the things. Any more? You probably have better options than I do.
Going back to just the very basics of virtual networking, make sure that your internet connection's good, your face is well lit, your camera's not down here where you're like seeing all of this. Like make sure like your camera, you're like looking at somebody in person. Your sound's good. Like a lot of those things start distracting the other party that you're communicating with if you're not putting your best foot forward. A lot of the same principles still apply. Virtual networking to me is actually a bit easier because you can message people, you can be sitting there in the comfort of your own home or wherever you're doing this virtual networking. And you can also send people LinkedIn connections immediately while you're there. You're not having to remember to go home after this and set all this down. You can actually do it. You can do these further connection processes while you're still networking. So I like virtual networking, but it's definitely a skill or a different type of skill.
Great question. Any other questions? Awesome. All right. One thing I didn't bring up that I know can be a bit of a mixed bag, right, is you want to be prepared to either have a way for people to follow up, right? So that can be business cards. That can be, I've got paper and virtual business cards with me, right? Again, we live in 2023. That can be connecting on LinkedIn, right? That can be connecting on Facebook if that's your flavor, right? So being prepared to know how you're going to connect with people, how you're going to exchange information before you go to the event is also important. And again, whatever way is most comfortable for you, right? There are lots of different ways to do that. I have a digital like QR code business card, but sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So I always have my paper ones in backup. But again, before the event, I've probably already tried to add you on Facebook or LinkedIn if you were listed as going. But those are just a couple things to keep in mind as well. And you may have more to share on that than I do, even.
My biggest piece of advice is remove the, hey, can I add you on LinkedIn, or can I add you on Instagram or Facebook or one of those? Hey, here's my phone, type in your name on my LinkedIn search bar, can I add you on LinkedIn right now? That is the quickest way to keep people in your network and still be able to follow up. Like, if you're not adding people to LinkedIn, that is the professional network and is the easiest way to keep people in your network. So forget looking at people's Instagram photos, get on people's LinkedIn and do that quick. It's a very easy thing to do.
Awesome. Good. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the follow-up to your event. Oh, my phone is... So after you've done the event, after you've made the connections, what are some of the next steps you should be taking, right? Well, hopefully you found either a new connection on LinkedIn, you've planned a coffee, or you've planned a lunch, right? So you have your next step kind of built in. The other thing is to think about, was this event worth my time, right? We talked about repetition, right? Did I feel like the group of people there is going to be a group of people I want to continue to move on with, to develop my skills with? Is this a professional or personal network that's going to help me? And to take a realistic look at that, right? Our time is limited, and we are pulled 1,000 different directions between personal, professional responsibilities. And so taking a realistic breath after the event to say, is this where I need to go next month, right? Is this an event or group that's going to enrich me and that I will also bring value to? And if it's not, then find a different group, find a different place to network with. You may not know that after the first month, right? But after 2 or 3 months, if you're going repeatedly, you'll get a good sense of this may not be the most beneficial for what I'm looking for, right? Groups are organized in many different ways around many different things, and it can take a moment to find your fit, right? Like Zach was saying earlier, finding your tribe. And so taking a moment to analyze, was this beneficial? Would it be beneficial to go again? Secondly, after the event, if there was someone you weren't able to talk with, that you didn't have a time to do a deep conversation with, right? Either adding them on LinkedIn or planning to see how you can connect with them in other ways. So doing that outreach, email or message, or figuring out where they're going for their next event, right? Finding where other people are going as well. Any follow-ups you want to add?
Actually, the last two things you said were going to be my follow-up. Before, if it's an event or a group that you do like, ask one of the leaders at the event or go on their website immediately and immediately sign up for the next event, because calendars fill up quickly and you want to make sure that you're there. It's very easy to add it to your Outlook or Google or whatever calendar to just know it's there for next. Don't wait. Like there's a lot of times my calendar will book up and I'm like, oh, I can't go to that event. So make sure that if you really want to be in that group, make sure that you're adding that to the calendar before the end of the evening. Following up with people, don't wait days and days and days. Don't send it, like, you don't have to send it that night. You can, but at least by the end of day next day, send a follow-up LinkedIn, follow-up email, text, whatever. Hey, we met at X event and we were talking about this. I would love to follow up with you about this conversation. I very much enjoyed it. Can we grab coffee or lunch sometime? It's being very direct and helping them remember who you are, even if they don't. Repetition of name, repetition of what we spoke about, and also what your agenda is or your intentions are for the carrying out to the next step. Being very clear with that communication goes a long way. In business, politics, whatever, making those interpersonal connections and stating what your business is.
Yeah, and another thing on being that connector person, right? Let's say you met someone and you were coming in looking for a job, and that person may not be how you're going to get your job, you think, but there's someone you want to stay in touch with. The other thing about being a connector is you can do the introduction for them, right? About half the emails I send on any given day are connecting someone to someone else, right? I've used Bethany Corrigan as an example twice now, but I'm going to do it again, right? Because Transcend Charlotte and Caroline's Care Partnership do so much great work as far as healthcare provision for transgender, expansive, non-binary people in our community that I'm doing an introduction all the time, right? Because if that's what you're looking for, healthcare support, I'm going to connect you to people at Charlotte Trans Health or Transcend Charlotte. If you are a parent of an LGBTQ youth, I'm going to send an email to introduce you to PFLAG Charlotte or to Time Out Youth. If you're looking for more information on how to access county health services, I may CC you on an email to Commissioner Pat Cotham, who's with us today, right? But knowing how to connect people is also going to be a superpower, right? Because you will start building your own brand as a connector, and then people will start connecting people back to you, right? Because they know that you pass people along to them, they'll be more likely to connect them back to you, so that there is something that applies to you that people are thinking about, they'll do it right back, right? Because they'll remember, oh, I remember that email where Zach introduced me to a potential new hire when we were looking for a position. Cameron helped connect a new client to us, right? And so that's another way of that superpower of being a connector in the room can also transfer into digital. I may surprise some of you, but I really am not a big fan of phone calls. So I do most of my communications via, email, LinkedIn message, messenger, text message. And it's very easy to do those quick digital introductions for people and helps strengthen not just you, right, but strengthens all of us, really, right? It helps build our community in exciting ways that may not otherwise have happened, and you can be part of that, right? Building that enduring, resilient network of people who are able to respond quickly, adapt quickly, and you can be part of that by being that connector.
And going to the actual emails, texts, LinkedIn messages, all of that is searchable. So being clear with your communication. If I don't know, Cameron introduced me to someone that wanted to be hired somewhere, all I have to do is type in a search bar, Cameron hired, or being able to pull that back, because we're all busy. Someone might not get to your message in the next day, but what happens 3 to 6 months down the road when someone has a need and immediately they need to pull that up? You can't really pull up a phone call, but you can pull up an email, you can pull up a text message, you can pull up a LinkedIn message. So that's why being very clear with your communication so it's searchable will help you stay on someone's radar and provide you future opportunities. So you're like leaving seeds of to grow into beautiful trees later. That's the last Bob Ross reference I'll do.
So I know that food has arrived and we're slowly making our way to get sandwiches. Any other questions that you have that we may be able to share from our experiences or other people in the room may be able to share? Yeah. Yeah. So to repeat that for folks online, the question was, how do you introduce yourself at events, right? Do you just go up and say, hi, I'm Cameron, or do you just kind of work your way into a group that's already talking? Do you want to go first? Mr. Introvert? Okay, no. Sure. Right, my best pickup line. I mean, blame it on me being a Gemini. It depends on the event, right? I'm going to approach every event differently. It just depends on what's going on. If it's a networking event, absolutely, right? You've prepared your elevator pitch. You know who you are. You know why you're there. And introduce yourself, right? Hi, my name is Cameron Pruitt. I am here on behalf of the Freedom Center for Social Justice. What brings you to the LGBT Chamber event? Hi, I'm Cameron Pruitt. I'm a different title. And so just, yes, having your elevator pitch ready. And again, once you've broken the ice, again, you can just build your connector train from there, right? And just start introducing people around. But yes, direct is always going to be a way to break the ice, especially if it's a specifically networking event. Everyone's there to meet people. So you're not going to be surprising folks by saying, hi. Yeah.
If you need a step before that, you could always, if there are drinks and stuff, be like, oh my gosh, that looks delicious. What are you having to drink? Just to start the conversation. Or like, oh, I love, or what kind of sandwich you're eating? Or, oh my God, I love that ring. Where'd you get it? People love talking about themselves, and it'll put them kind of on their heels to where you can then, I'm sorry. I'm Zach Anderson. Very nice to meet you. I'm with Zaddy Solutions. Who are you here with? It's just if you're just needing to break the ice a little bit easier rather than just going in and saying, "Hi, I'm here because of X." There's ways to. There are ways to break the ice a little bit beforehand. I mean, don't be creepy about it. I mean, let's not be like, oh, nice shoes. But just simple things like, oh, I love this song. Just little comments about what's going on in the environment around you, just to break the ice a little bit. I mean, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely give compliments, especially if we know each other. I feel like the first thing I said to several people in this room, like, oh my God, I love your earrings, or that sort of thing too, absolutely helps break the ice. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
Thanks, Jason.
On hosting a networking event, what are some of the most memorable experiences you've had where the host sort of coordinated that moment that gave you a chance to network with people, whether it was four corners, 1, 2, 3, 4, or a question, what, from a hosting standpoint, what would you suggest, and what do you remember as like, wow, that made it so easy?
So I was a camp counselor and camp director in a former life, so icebreakers and those sorts of things are very near and dear to my heart because there's something about things that are a little bit silly that help us relax, right? If any time I'm like public speaking, I want people to laugh, and then I also relax, right? If you can get people to laugh. And so anything that makes people feel a little uncomfortable, but we're all doing it together, right? So, sometimes I really like the, the little sticky note on your head, like, who are you? You're a famous historical figure, and you have to ask questions and figure out who other people are. Or you have to find your match, but you don't know what's on your head. Right, but things that require us all to be engaged, so it's a level playing field, right? We're all doing the silly thing together. And I find that laughter, anything that gets you to laugh together, is a really good way to break some of the tension, break some of the barrier, and immediately creates a shared experience that we can all talk about. And is a nightmare for introverts, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I present as an extrovert, but I just have to have my rest. I will say that since you keep calling me an introvert, dirty word. I like to keep things more simple. If someone's hosting an event, being present as someone is coming in the door. The hostess or the host stand is at the front of the restaurant to welcome people in and be the person's like, hey, here's your table, or here's your waiter, or here's this, to be the first person that you see walking in the door rather than hiding in the back or it taking 15 minutes to see the host. that host or the host party that knows who's there, that's with the list, that is connected there, to be able to break the ice immediately once people are getting in the door. Like, hey, the drinks are this way, the food's that way. I saw that you're a part of X. Go talk to this person. They're wearing this. Drop my name so y'all can talk. Just being able to be at the door and be there to welcome people into the room, because that is the first thing that you see.
Also note, for virtual things, please use breakout rooms, right? Put people in smaller groups so that it's easier to talk, 2, 3, 4 people. I've done that for networking events. I've also done it with really good success in political events, right? Having candidates talk to 2 or 3 people at a time versus in a whole group of people is way more impactful, right? And so using those smaller spaces too, where it's not a screen of 30 faces, right, where you have to talk and you can't see everyone, or you can only see your face. If it's 4, then you can see everybody, including yourself, all at the same time. So that's the other thing I would say for virtual events that I found to be better. What else?
Yeah, anybody else?
I'm sure y'all have questions.
I know you're also eating, so you know.
Have you had an experience that didn't go well, and maybe how do you recover from that without kind of going further into a hole? So just want to hear about kind of how you recover from maybe something that didn't go as planned.
Yeah, absolutely I have, right? I go to a lot. So I absolutely have put my foot in my mouth or had an event that not went well, or yes, right, that will happen. You hide in shame and don't go to that group for a year, right? But yes, so I have had experiences not go well. And I think part of it is you have these concrete goals in your mind, and you have ways to recover, right? So knowing what your goal was going into the event. Maybe one of your conversations didn't go well, but another conversation did, right? Finding ways to make the best of what may be a bad situation, but also knowing that repetition piece, right? That this is not the only event you're going to, right? So keeping that perspective in mind. And again, this gets easier with repetition, unfortunately, is that something you just have to do over and over again, stretch that muscle. And really, again, it's going to be, you know, taking the L if that's what it is, and then finding your next event, finding the next thing to go to. Charlotte's a small place. Charlotte's also a big place, right? So there are lots of places for you to find connection and belonging and to fit in and find those networks.
We get one, Becky, we get one answer. For me, getting locked in a conversation that you can't get out of, one of my biggest fears, and knowing how to gracefully get out of it. That took me a long time. I probably have a few enemies out there. My bad, y'all. But knowing how to gracefully get out of conversation that doesn't lock you in for 30 minutes, just having ways to get out of it, like, I need to go talk to, or I see my business partner, I see someone someone else I need to chat with, or just gracefully getting out of it without making someone feel like total crap, because we're all out here on our own accord. There's definitely a spectrum of different mental abilities, things like that. People don't understand social cues, things like that. So being able to gracefully do that and not offend anybody is something to very much navigate, because time is the only resource that we can't get more of or get back. So being able to make the most of the time that you're there, and not just staying locked in on one conversation, one person, one thing.
Zach, could you comment on some graceful exits? Like any ideas to how to, because that was one thing I thought of. You could be sucked into a conversation and you only networked with maybe 2 people versus 10.
I could say thank you so much for the conversation. There's a few other people I need to meet, but here's my business card. Let's grab coffee. Or oh goodness, my drink is empty. I need to go get something from the bar. Or don't say my dog ate my homework or my mom's calling. That's just lame. But just being able to have a segue, or even if you go with someone and be like, hey, if I give you this hand signal, walk up, like, or just like if I wink or do something, walk up and help out. Also, one thing that Cameron said earlier, as far as forgetting people's names, if you have somebody that you know for a fact that, like, if you're introducing to someone, hey, meet my friend Cameron, and then Cameron is getting that person's name because I forgot it, that's always a good trick to have. If you've ever seen Devil Wears Prada, she does that. But gracefully exiting is something that you just have to practice, because I was not good at it for a long time.
So the question was, if you're going to an event and there's not a lot of interaction going in the room, how do you make sure there's more? How do you get more involved to make sure there's more action going on? Is that right? Okay, awesome. It's kind of situational, right? I think that again, even for me, gracefully exiting can also be a connecting moment. You can do the pass off, right? Oh my gosh, have you met Zach? And also that could be, for me, I know that's kind of been my go-to response, but for me it really works in every situation, right? If there's kind of quiet, we're all sitting around, if you've got a friend or someone introduce them around, right? Even if, like, it might be the chair or the president or your best friend, right? Whoever it is, introducing people around breaks the ice. It also makes people kind of like, well, who are they? They're introducing everybody around. And so for me, that's always kind of my go-to, and I wish I had like 10 other things to give you, but that's kind of really my go-to, is that, like, I'm going to introduce people around the room, especially people that I think people need to meet, right? So especially if they're one of my favorite people, or they're doing great work and I want everyone to know about them, or they need support, I'm going to introduce them around the room. That's going to be my way to get more people involved and more people talking.
A simple visual representation. This table here has 2 people. I'm not picking on you two. I promise you don't smell or anything. If you're at a group and there's not much going on here, but then you see 5 people over here, you have a drink, kind of walk up, pay attention. Don't like jump in like you're about to splash into a pool, but just kind of listen, and if they start making eye contact with you, join in the conversation, listen to what they're talking about, and then if you have anything that's appropriate to add, that's when you start, it's like, oh, okay, I've done that before, or yeah, this is, and just kind of join in, but you don't, just kind of move to where a lot of people are, listen to the conversation, and organically join. That's one of my tricks.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much again for joining us and sitting through while you hadn't eaten yet. I know that's not fun. I get hangry very quickly, so I appreciate your patience and also your interaction and asking questions. I also want to thank Zach for kind of last minute agreeing to step up and do this with me, so I really appreciate it. And so before I let you go, I warned you earlier this was coming, but so if you want to take a picture,
Cameron, can I say something real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Boop, boop.
I decided to join this because I saw this, and I've been wanting to present with Cameron before. I've seen him at networking events, but I've never seen him actually present until there was the town hall a few months ago, and I was really impressed with how you got up there and presented and could make the room work. There was a room full of elected officials and executive directors of nonprofits, and you outshined them all. So thanks for inviting me up here.
Hey, Zach. Appreciate it. Yeah. All right. So while I've got you here for a few more moments, we know that there have been a lot of anti-LGBTQ bills moving through the legislature at lightning speed in this session. I know that you've heard us ask week after week, day after day, to make phone calls or send emails. But at 2 p.m. today, the North Carolina House is likely going to take up votes to override Governor Cooper's veto of several pieces of anti-LGBTQ legislation. And so if you are able, you can get a picture of these names. These are either folks who have voted for anti-LGBTQ bills or missed votes altogether. So they abstained or they voted in favor of some of these bills. There are 3 bills, and I've got information about the bills and what you can say on the slides to come. These are Republicans and Democrats, people from Mecklenburg and also outside Mecklenburg. These are the key votes of folks that we either need to show up to vote against them or to just stay home and not vote at all on these bills. HB 574, HB 808, and SB 49 are the big 3 we're watching. HB 808 is a ban on gender-affirming care for minors, including puberty blockers, right? And so these laws have been held in Kentucky, Arkansas, Texas, Florida, and Indiana. They're unconstitutional. They will be thrown out in court. But kids need care now. We know that gender-affirming care is life-saving care. And so HB 808 is a total ban on gender-affirming care for minors. HB 574 is a ban on trans girls and women playing sports with their gender identity. Just an idea of how cruel this is, there are only 2 trans girls who've been approved by the Athletic Association in 4 years to play sports with their gender identity. 2. We are throwing laws to attack 2 kids and their families. SB 49 is a copycat of the Don't Say Gay, Don't Say Trans bill out of Florida. It erases LGBTQ people from curriculum and more insidiously force out LGBTQ students, especially trans students, to their parents. And it puts the burden of proof on the kid to whether or not the teacher will know if abuse will happen in the future. Right? When asked about this while this legislation was being debated, they were like, well, we'll find out after the fact. That's too late. And so these bills are harmful to our community. I've got some more information about the bills here on this slide if you just want more information about what to say about each bill. Again, HB 808 and HB 574 are going to be voted on the 2 o'clock session today. So if you can, on your drive back to work, if you want to step outside, these calls take a few minutes. And they're the only real lever we have right now, right? And so please, if you can, make those calls. They do have impact, I promise. They listen to them, they're counting them, they're paying attention because there's a lot of bills going on. Our legislature hasn't passed a budget yet. They have a lot of other things to do. Let's not make this the path of least resistance. Let's make this difficult and hard and painful for them to do so they choose to do something else or just go home. And so I want to thank you so much for making calls. Kelly, do you want to add more? Yeah. Absolutely. So I've got a little bit of information on here. If you've got a personal story, these bills are really specifically targeting trans kids, right? If you've got a personal story, please share it. If you've got a personal story, please feel free to share. Those are always powerful and impactful. What you can say is that gender-affirming care saves lives. It is life-saving care. It is evidence-based. It has been tested. And we've been using things like puberty blockers for decades, right? And they're just now coming under attack. Bethany, did you want to add more? Because
in the spirit of networking, and I apologize, I have to run, but there's a wonderful organization they're actually in Indian Trail, but they serve Mecklenburg County, the Gender Education Network. They're a little underground right now because if we're talking about the anti-queer protests and hate, they are getting absolutely slammed with it. I'm sure Joshua Jernigan is the ED over there. Please donate to them. And I mean, like, even if you were going to choose today to donate to an organization, far be it from me to say, you know, if you really can only choose one, there's lots of people to choose from in this room, please contact Gender Education Network. They're the only organization between Durham and Asheville who are supporting kids under the age of 12 and their families. They do clothing. They basically do all of the services that Transcend does, but replicated for kids. They're doing a lot with the county schools, and they do a lot in Union County, which if you know anything about what's going on in Union County right now, so please support them. Love you.
Thank you so much, Bethany. And so you can also point out that families will leave our state. Families have already left our state because of this legislation. This makes us uncompetitive from a business example, right? I was talking to VP of American Airlines a few weeks ago, and he's talking about that they had a bunch of flight attendants move their home base from Florida up to Charlotte, and now they're looking that they're going to have to relocate again out of Charlotte, right? People were coming to North Carolina because they thought it was going to be safe for LGBTQ people, safe for their kids, safe for their families, and these bills say the opposite. And so people will flee the state. We will be less business competitive. These are unconstitutional bills that discriminate on the basis of sex and gender. They're going to be knocked down and illegal. They're harmful and will cause loss of life, right? The Trevor Project has shown very clearly that laws like this, even discussing laws like this, increases suicidal ideation, depression, and anxiety in queer youth. Yes? Well, I want to thank the Mecklenburg County Commission for passing a non-discrimination ordinance, and also the County Commission did provide additional ARPA funding for Charlotte Trans Health and Time Out Youth as well to support our local community here. So I want to appreciate the work of the County Commission to support LGBTQ youth even in the midst of this legislature stuff as well. Pat, I don't know if you want to say anything more about supporting LGBTQ youth. I know we kind of put you on the spot, but. Right.
I was here before a lot of you were here when it was called the Business Guild. So I have tried to, be a part, but I was also trying to be a part to better understand, and I think that's one thing that has helped me over the years. It hasn't always been easy because sometimes I said something that I didn't. I remember I was at the Museum of the New South, and there was a discussion about LGBT. We didn't use the Q then, as I recall, and transgender. And I used the word transgendered, and I really got beat down on that. I was hands wrapped. You're saying the wrong thing. And it was just. I said, well, I'm trying. I just didn't know. And I'm here to learn. But it did make me a little gun shy, after that. That was some years back. But I have appreciated over the years that y'all have been a resource for me that I can call and have a safe space. And I have called, like, help me understand this. I don't get this. And I think I would encourage you to, when you're talking to elected officials, to offer that more, because a lot of times they just don't understand. And so that's why when you talked about if you have a story to tell the story. That's going to help. But giving them a safe space to ask a question is always going to be appreciated. And that's how we build on these things. So, but I have always stood with you, and I have tried to, and I led the Pride proclamation for the month at the county, and I will always stand with you, but I will always need you to be helpful to me and to answer my questions if I don't get something or if I don't understand something. So that, that would be helpful. So I just, I'm happy to be here, and I enjoyed the lunch. I didn't know I was getting any kind of a lunch. I've been with the fire department earlier today and with another group on education, so I was really looking forward to being with y'all. Could I say something about what you were talking about before? If I could just, if I could just say something about your networking. Networking is what elected officials have to do. Al Austin is here, and he's a great networker, but all of those things relate very much to how we get to know people. But, as long as I have, and I know this is a business, we mean business here at the Business Guild, as long as I have been associated with this, I don't remember anyone ever asking me how I might be able to give you some ideas on a business. And I had my own business for 10 years, but I worked in the business world I was a benefit of affirmative action in the early 70s. And, but I think also there's people who will help you, but you have to reach out to them and ask them. But it's amazed me that no one has ever asked me, because I have a lot of connections, and I can talk to people, and if you need to try to get with somebody, ask me. I'll try to help you. I'll try to help you. If you need to get in touch with Chad Turner, I know him. He usually takes my call, so I can ask him, or if you don't understand something, I'll help you talk to him. But seriously, but I think there's more people who are willing to help you than you know. So if you ever do this again, I'd like to be involved with it.
Test. Everyone, let's give Zach and Cameron a big round of applause. I don't know why Cameron was being bashful. I think we can all see why he's a very good networker and why we chose him to present, also along with Zach as well. So we appreciate you all sharing your knowledge with everyone. To wrap up, before I let you go, we've got a couple of things. On your table, you've got a QR code. That is a survey. If you could complete that as I'm wrapping things up, it just gives us an idea of how we did today. I think the word of today is flexibility. We had to quickly switch spaces due to our normal space having a slight issue, so we appreciate everyone finding their way over to this side of Charlotte. You got to see a different space. And then also just a little snag with lunch today. Again, thank you for your flexibility. If you've been here before, we usually run a very smooth show. So coming up, a couple of events I want to share with you. Speaking of networking, our monthly networking event is the 25th of July. And it's going to be called At Your Service. And it's going to be kind of putting you in touch with some service-oriented businesses that you may need to call on in the future. It's going to be at 204 North, so you'll start to see some marketing come out for that and registration. If you can attend, we'd love to have you there. Coming up next month, which is sort of Pride Month in August, we have our next Lunch and Learn, and it's a part of a two-part series. If you come to the first one, you don't want to miss the second one. The first one is, the series is called From Legit to Profit. And first part is Top Mistakes to Avoid in Small Business Startup and Accounting, and that's going to feature Joyce St. Cyr with Diverse Community Partners. She's going to be speaking about some things you want to make sure you're doing correct in regards to the law and legal and accounting and all that stuff. Some things where some businesses don't think of, and they kind of get in hot water after the fact. So come and listen to her. And then in September, on the 13th, the second part of that series will involve building trust and profitability for your brand. We've got Jen Carbuto with Carbuto Designs and Daniel Pentecost with CLT Geek. A lot of you know those two individuals. I'm sure you'll want to hear what they have to share in regards to that. So those two events coming up, and I think that is it. Chad, do you want to say anything, or Mel? Chad always has something to say. So please lock into our events and everything. We love seeing you out. This was a great turnout today. Thank you for coming.
Let's give Becky and Jason a hand for they manage and direct our education and programming committee, and they do these lunch and learns throughout the year and have built this program to what it is today. If you haven't had a chance, our new website is up, and take a look at the new website. There's some new features on it. If you've got a directory listing, there's some other things you can do with the directory listing. Also, how many people in the room are not members of the chamber yet? So before you leave today, you can speak to Abby and Melissa and any of the other board members that are here about membership and how to get involved in various areas. You can join as a professional, small business, or a nonprofit. Also, be on the lookout for some new opportunities in September we're getting ready to do our supplier diversity matchmaking event with Wells Fargo. And if you're an LGBT-owned business, woman-owned business, black or brown-owned business, veteran-owned business, and you want to get certified or are certified, we are going to give you moments in a speed dating environment to spend anywhere between 7 to 10 minutes with corporation leaders that make decisions about where they spend their money, and talk to them about how you can do business with larger companies and how you can get into their procurement process. And so you'll have the opportunity to sign up, go through the list of companies that are going to be there, schedule time with the companies that match what you're doing and what they're looking for. Caterers, coaches, consulting, any of that stuff. And so it's going to put you in the room with people from NASCAR and Wells Fargo and Sunoco and the larger companies that are our 45 corporate partners, if you want to take a look on the website. If you want to talk about certification before you leave, just see me, and we can discuss what that looks like and also what the matchmaking event is. Also, if you want to talk about membership, again, board members, raise your hand. There's board members around the room, and they can talk to you too. Thank you for coming.